Sunday morning. We have with us, of course, people you recognize, Karen G. Anderson, the one of our editors and authors here at BQ Press, and Brenda Clough, one of our hosts at BQ Press. But we're still working on her authorship for a BQ Press story. But someday I will track her down, tape her fingers to the keyboard, and get something moving. Uh, and then our special guest is one of the founding members of Bookview Cafe, one of the largest book cooperatives in the United States. It is a wonderful opportunity where a bunch of people got together and did something cool. But instead of me just saying did something cool, I'm going to let Karen introduce the process. And Sherwood, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I'm really delighted to get to talk with Sherwood today and let you find out a little bit more about what's gone on at Bookview Cafe. Did we just lose Sherwood?
Bob, yes, she did, but she's back.
There we go. Okay.
Okay, yay.
Our guest. Sherwood was in at the ground floor of one of the first cooperative publishing groups that was way ahead of the indie presses that we see right now. And I'm going to ask her to give us some background, tell us a little bit about who was there at the beginning and why they decided that a publishing cooperative would work as it has done. Sherwood?
I have to say that I was not actually a founding member, but I came in a year afterward. So for all purposes, I've been there for most of the time, if not all of it. From the outside, what I saw was a bunch of writing friends started posting about a cooperative that they were starting. The impetus was to bring their backlists into ebooks, because in the 70s and 80s, when most were selling, of course, there were no ebooks. And so contracts were for print. And that meant everybody's rights to their own books were for ebooks. They had their rights. So they decided to put together this consortium and learn how to get cover art and format and find a way to sell them online. The first system they got was called Joomla. And think of an octopus with 8 broken legs. And walking aids made out of old tires. In other words, it was a horrible system. It was a mess. It took forever to get stuff done. But Vonda McIntyre, one of the founding members, was determined to master it and also master putting together ebooks. So these people got it organized, and one by one they started publishing their backlist. And
now, does the press only do ebooks, or does it now do print books in print as well?
It does both. It started with ebooks, and they had, for publicizing it, they had what was called a dowry system, where somebody would write a publicity sheet, and then every member would post that on their social media. That was well meant, but it soon proved to be counter effective, not effective at all, because nobody wanted to be bombarded with constant reiterations of the same material. So publicity has always been a difficult thing because we have a budget of 0. And we tried many different ways to get the word out there about the books. Lately, we have 2 new members who are young and eager, and they understand TikTok and YouTube podcasts and all these new forms coming out. And so the Bookview Cafe is about to launch into these in the next weeks.
Wow. Meanwhile, how many people are currently involved in producing books at Bookview Cafe?
Well, I think there's something like 24 or 28 members. Some of them are on hiatus for various reasons. but most are writing books. I think it was about 2010 that Bookview Cafe made the leap from backlist to publishing original fiction. And that led to the question of, if we don't have editors anymore, who is the gatekeeper? And it took a lot of discussion to realize that we had to do this by consensus, that there is a gatekeeper. So one of the ways uh, one of the ways that the group developed was to only accept members who had been traditionally published, so that presumably they would know this, how to write a good book, how to take editing, how to deal with copy editing, la 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 la. Oh wow! Good morning to all the people commenting there. I lost my train of thought.
And so you've now got more than 20 people involved and actively doing this, and
Yeah.
and now there's a lot of original material coming out.
Yeah, mostly original material, but as people get the rights back to their books, like Irene Radford, who would be with us today, except she's feeling under the weather, she might check in later. She recently got the rights back to a whole slew of books, and so they are coming out fairly frequently with new covers, and some of them she's editing. And anyway, but mostly new material these days.
Does being part of Bookview Cafe do you have your own artists, or do people do covers through the cafe, or are the writers are responsible for that?
Some people do covers through the cafe. We have a couple of people who have started venturing into the art area and are getting better and better. Dave Smeds, one of our members, is really getting good at it. He's come up with some lovely covers for our people, but mostly members get their covers from outside. There is one requirement for publishing, which is somebody in the group has to either beta read, copy edit, or proof before we go to publication.
Okay.
That can swing the stick either way, because the author can always step anything that the copy editor or proofer or beta reader suggests. But again, we're back to the fact that all of publishing is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Brenda, you're published at Bookview Cafe.
I have been doing a lot of original works up on Bookview Cafe. I hope this is audible.
It is.
Oh, good. I'm not in the United States, and so my connection is weird. Weird things are happening. I've been essentially, because I was unable to persuade a traditional publisher to publish some of my stuff, I just dove into Bookview Cafe and began slinging original works out. So I may be the person who began to first do original books with Bookview Cafe. I think when I put out Revise the World, for a brief period of time, it was our best seller. That was very nice. For about 20 minutes, I would say.
So Sherwood, what's the process for deciding if you want to let an author in? Does their material have to be kind of genre? Does it have to sort of fit into the genres that Bookview already does?
Pretty much, although we're doing a wide variety of genres, and that's expanding. One of the new doing thrillers, women's thrillers, and we haven't had anybody write those. So the umbrella is pretty large. If you look on the website and look at would it be the keywords
or category?
Yes, you're going to find a surprising number of them. Also, there's a lot of cross-genre work that FA is doing. Up until fairly recently, traditional publishers were wary of, partly because it's hard to market cross-genre things. But with keywords becoming more popular and people narrowing down their own reading requirements or wants, it gets easier to find your particular reading niche.
Okay.
How to get our to signal that. That's a science in itself.
Because you're all on one website, do you have any evidence or feeling that people who come for one author they already know start buying books from other people in the cooperative?
I don't know that there's evidence. We have one person who's just starting to experiment with Google Analytics, which changed in a major way in the last few months. We've noticed that we get a lot of traffic when we do our half off sales and then between Christmas and New Year's. And those people are getting used to the newcomers, we assume, are getting used to side loading, which is like one more step than Amazon. And exploring through the website to find new authors.
Mm-hmm. And we're doing other things like starting a YouTube channel mainly with readings or book discussions. So hopefully we'll get in with a whole new range of possible people who are interested in our work.
So all of this is going on with volunteers.
Yes.
So do you find that when you're letting people in, do you vet them pretty seriously to make sure that they're going to work as volunteers as well as authors?
Well, we used to have a membership committee and it took forever. And even then, people who seemed real enthusiastic, when it came down to it, they didn't necessarily put the effort in that they promised. And this is a human thing.
Stuff happens. You get sick, you know.
And people had different expectations. Some people wanted to be queen bee of the whole group, and this is a consortium that runs by consensus. There is no queen bee. We have to work out what we agree, and sometimes that takes a long time. So now we're a lot looser. If somebody wants in, we just open it to a discussion. Does anybody know why this person shouldn't? We look at their website. If they've got a lot of work, it seems they want to publish, great. If they bring in a new genre, great. Does anybody have a red flag? And by red flag, we mean, do you know that this person has been arrested 90 times for trying to rob Fort Knox? Or has this person been thrown out of conventions for, crazy political behavior or whatever? Then somebody might say, I'm not so sure about that. It's happened very infrequently. Persons that usually don't want to look at.
We always look for people with skills, people who can really massage software or who can really format books. Love you.
Okay.
That's why we're excited about our new Farron is one of her writing names, and then Bailey is her last name. I haven't met her yet, so it's hard for me to retain names. She is our YouTube maven, and she just came out.
Catherine, I want to say Catherine Douglas.
Or Kate Daly, I think. Anyway, one of her books is on the front page, I believe, and she's writing women's thrillers. So look for her on there. These are two new, eager, young writers bringing in new genres, and they are very net savvy, unlike us oldie moldies.
So do you folks ever do a table at conventions?
We have in the past, and we've been discussing possibly doing it again.
Okay.
We have done a few bits of things, and I wouldn't mind doing something. It's important to get enough members at whatever convention it is that we're doing that makes it worthwhile. I'm old-fashioned enough that I think we should be throwing parties, but rather than tables, because a lot of our books are e-books. There's no paper book to sell.
Yeah, but the good thing about the paper books to sell is if people pick one up, see one and pick it up, and they like the look of the book, and we've got material there about Bookview Cafe, they're more go
Mhm.
online and check out everything, I think.
Okay. I want to invite you to come to the Seattle Worldcon in 2025 because I think there are a number of
Yes,
Bookview
yes.
Cafe authors in that area, and it would be a great place to have a table
Oh,
and
I
throw
think
parties.
that's a good idea. And I'd love to get to Seattle again. It's such a wonderful city and so many great writers up there.
I'm planning to go, and I think that the stars will align such that we could do something. If we can't have parties, or we could, or a table, we could do something. But it will be certainly possible. There'll be enough of us there. At the very minimum, we could buy chocolate in the con suite or something like that. There's a lot of things that can be done. We don't have a lot of we don't have a lot of money the way larger publishers do. You're not having a tour party with open bar, but we could do other fun things. I mean, chocolate,
I think that the first, if I remember correctly, the very first year that Bookview Cafe started, they did have a table because I was not a member yet. And somebody had baked a cake and they were giving out pieces of cake to interested people walking up, which I thought was a terrific idea.
Was that in the Spokane Worldcon?
I don't remember. It was, 15 years ago and a lot of cons ago.
It was because at that Worldcon, Vonda McIntyre was the guest of honor, and she was one of the
That makes
founding
sense,
members
yeah.
of Bookview Cafe. And Madeline Robbins made the most beautiful cake representing the moon and there was a sea creature, and this cake that essentially would tap dance and salute. It was great. We
So
could do that again.
I have to ask, did Bookview Cafe start out as being mostly women?
Yes.
But I think it's expanded now, and it's
Yes. We have some very nice gentlemen in the group, but I think that originally it started out with women, and I don't think it was deliberate. It just happened that when Sarah Zettel raised the flag and said, "Let's get together and put on a show," it was women who said, "Oh God, I have so much backlist, I must do something."
Yes.
I noticed that I believe Gregory Frost has a Edgar Allan Poe book in there.
Yep. Stephen Popkins, Chris, who lives in France, he writes the funniest Woodhouse pastiche. It's science.
Oh, I write that. I want to. What is his name? I want to find this.
Chris Dolly.
Okay.
And if you want to see cooperative, I did the drawing for his first Jeeves book. It depicts them it's steampunky, so it depicts them in a balloon, a hot air balloon, and Bertie Wooster is holding a martini glass like this.
Oh my gosh. I definitely have to get that one.
Yes, yes. Let's see. And Dave Smeds is one of ours. I mentioned him.
Yep.
He is bringing out the third of a really good fantasy adventure series. I've read all three of them. The third one in draft, and the other two for proofreading. Gosh, they're just terrific fantasies. So those are coming out, I believe, starting next spring. Who else for men?
And you guys have done like a holiday collection and stuff.
Yes. Oh, and we have a cookbook coming out real soon.
Yes. And it wasn't you who did the Halloween collection, Sherwood, but you did the one about ballrooms.
Are these collections completely from within Bookview Cafe, or do you take subs from outside?
Well, it happened at the ball. I did take things from, I think, two people from the outside, but the rest are all Bookview Cafe members.
And they're just sort of projects within the group. Someone gets up on their hind legs and says, "What we need is a Halloween collection," and they run around and ask the members, "Can you write a ghost story? Come on, write a ghost story." And some of us do, some of us don't, and some of us said we wouldn't, but then suddenly roll in and do one. And then you have a real, it's a sort of a nice sampler of the
Yeah.
group, because people do different things.
I was noticing the flog, the one for the upcoming winter holidays. Shannon Page is the editor, and she's wonderful. And it's got stuff in there from Irene and from Alma Alexander. It looks wonderful.
There's a real range of stuff, and the fun thing about them is that they sort of give you a chance to write something that you had not written before. I don't think I'd ever written a ghost story before, but the cry went up, and for Sherwood, when we were doing the ballroom thing, you said, I know I need ballroom, it has to be a real story and not just a snip out of a novel. And I said, how about a vampire? And you immediately said, Sherwood, oh, sure, there's nothing like a vampire in a ballroom. Why not? And away we went.
It's true. And that's a fun story, too.
So I have to ask, because I'm into technology. I work in a lot of collaborative environments. One of them is all of my Viable Paradise classmates and I get together on a Slack all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like an old bulletin board because it's asynchronous. So how does the Bookview Cafe crew communicate?
Well, we have a forum. It's not on Discord. It's not on Slack. I don't know what the software is. And also, not everybody uses every forum. So we have a general email that goes out to everybody called Reads Group. And that goes out to every member. And then we have the forum. We tried something on IO, but a lot of people couldn't figure out how to get there because of all kinds of steps in between. I couldn't figure out how to get there. So we mostly have those two. And of course, they're writing email and then CCing people. But Reads Group is our official organ to reach everybody.
Okay. And when people take manuscripts to publication, does Bookview Cafe have like templates that help people do that?
No, although a lot of members for print are using Vellum. For ebooks, Jennifer Stevenson, who writes the loveliest and funniest romances with magic and without magic. She has several historicals. She has become a crackerjack ebook handler. She takes manuscripts that Word will kludge up with all kinds of crap that the author can't see. It's sort of behind the scenes. And she's learned how to strip all that stuff out. And she's slowly training those of us who are absolutely clueless about software how to use section heads, because it cuts a lot of that garbage out. And she really elegant, clean ebooks that are accessible or readable on Android and pretty much reader.
She has even figured out how to paste in PDFs of family trees or diagrams of murder scenes, fun things that improve
maps.
The book.
My books tend to have a lot of maps, and she says, "Okay, maps."
Oh, I love
that. That's an incredible value to an author to have that sort of expertise in the group.
Well, that's what makes it work so well. Everybody's either bringing a skill or learning a skill, and they find it.
And you can wander around and do different things. I've been blogging for almost the full period of time of Bookview Cafe, and I would not have thought I would have been a blogger, but essentially someone said, well, you could do it for a while, couldn't you? And I did, and 10 years, 15 years later, here we are.
So I've asked Brenda, what do you blog about?
Well, because there's no particular theme, one of the things I'm very sorry that I do blog about is traveling. And so if we go somewhere, I will write a nice little blog post about it. Right now, there's a series running on Bookview Cafe, which revolves around the Victorian invalid diet. In the 19th century, if you were ill, you had your own menu, you had your own clothing you had to wear, you even had your own vacation hot spots. And and I was only interested in the recipe bit of it. So we have things like the recipe for
There it is.
gruel. You remember how Oliver Twist wanted more gruel? Well, I have a recipe.
Wasn't there a kind of consomme that was made out of toast? You soak
Yes.
toast.
That is toast water. There is a lot of all of these recipes are so awful you do not want to try them really. But toast water, all you do is you toast the bread, you put it into a bowl, you pour hot water on it, and then you pour the hot water off and spoon it into the mouth of the sick person, who promptly dies, because that's what I would do.
Yes. Or hot milk. Yeah.
I'm old enough that I
Yeah.
have a Swedish grandmother who did some of these things, and I have cookbooks of hers that have the food for invalids, and it is enough to make sure you would never recover.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, it is. I do not wonder. You do not wonder at the mortality of those people, because they believed things that were patently untrue, like beef
Oh,
tea. Oh God, it sounds so horrible. So you can read these recipes, and it's obvious that if anyone fed them to you, you would, if you didn't die outright immediately, you'd shoot yourself because it just tastes so bad.
So, improving the recipes that we're going to discuss here. Do you guys have a cookbook coming out, and is there a theme for this cookbook?
just Bookview Cafe members offering whatever. It's a real range of recipes. When we were proofing it, I glanced through it. It's pretty entertaining. Each member says a little bit about themselves, and some are quite accomplished cooks. And then there's ones like me who are an elephant in the kitchen. So my recipes are all one pot, real quick, that type of thing. So you get a complete range.
You mean things that people actually cook?
Yes, every recipe has
Yeah.
to be something actually made.
When is the cookbook going to be ready? When will it be available?
Coming out this month.
Okay.
It'll be around. We'll blat it about on Facebook and so on, and the newsletter, that kind of thing. And I believe there's some talk about getting the videos going with it. Someone could cook something and it would work out.
They're right now in the process of getting the print books, and I want to give a shout out to Marissa Doyle, who writes lovely Regency with fantasy. She is another one who is learning to put out really elegant print books.
And she's one of the editors of this cookbook.
Yep. So she's getting the print books ready and lined up.
That should be fun.
I've always wanted to do a cookbook that had dueling recipes. I'm cooking something for a Day of the Dead party this afternoon, and I thought I'll just go online and check the recipe. And what I just loved was I found 2 recipes in which the authors were arguing vehemently against everything in the other recipe.
Oh, wow. Who would have thought? That's interesting. I guess it depends on what taste you're going for.
It's a recipe. It's a type of recipe that everyone's great-grandmother made if you're Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
And our great-grandmothers had, just did whatever they did, and they were poor. So some people peeled the potatoes and some people didn't. And some people insisted on a cast iron pan, and other people insisted on a glass pan, because many kosher houses use glass because it's easy to kosher. So it's been very amusing. I am taking all of the elements that make it very easy to make.
That's what I would do too.
Yeah. So I have a question. I'm curious. Does Bookview Cafe have a famous bestseller? In other words, the book that has sold the most for them?
Linda Nagata, who was a member, she no longer is. People come and go. Published through us one that won either a Nebula or a Hugo. One of her really good science fiction adventure. Oh gosh, what's the name of that? She's done a series.
I've read her stuff, a lot of it military thriller, science fiction, futuristic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you could say that. That's true. Anyway, she then Vonda's book, after she sold the movie rights, The Moon, there was a surge in that book. And of course, Ursula K. Le Guin, who was mostly an honorary member. She did blog for us, but she, she was busy with her life way up in the stratosphere. But she donated a couple of stories to Bookview Cafe. Those are steady sellers. So
And we have some people in very popular genres. I think Pat Rice is romance novels. You have enough romance novels and they're popular and they have a steady fandom.
Yes, when she publishes one, they all come over to Bookview Cafe and buy them up. She has a huge following.
So one of our Facebook users, who is obviously one of the team, says that Bookview Cafe Eats should be available this Tuesday, 11/7. So and then
very
distributed
good.
widely. So that means you can get it in time for Thanksgiving cooking.
That's right.
Or for Christmas as a gift.
Yes. This sounds wonderful.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the word is there. It's coming out on Tuesday.
And the other, we just have so many different irons in the fire. It's kind of nice. The blog sort of has an ongoing yatter from various members. The newsletter is where you can keep up with the releases coming out, things like books and events. And enough of us roll around at conventions that I think that you can. I was at World Fantasy last week, and Dave Smeds was there, and and enough of us are just about everywhere that you can find us.
That's a good thing to bring up, Brenda. The newsletter comes out once a month, and it includes specials when people slash the price of a book, number one in the series when a new one is coming out or whatever. It has little news items. Did a series on Rachel Neumeyer's, or is it pronounced Neumeyer, American style? Anyway, I've never actually heard somebody say it. But she had a series about adopting kittens. So there were every month. So
about adopting kittens?
And raising them. And she already raises show dogs. So she's quite knowledgeable about raising small animals healthily and then adopting them out and so forth. So the newsletter is worth signing up for.
So we have got a Facebook user with a question. What do you use to smooth out the chaos, Brenda, juggling so many projects at once?
I don't juggle. No, I would say that we have people in, I would say Jennifer Stevenson does keep us all on track. She's the one who sets up a cry. There are no books coming out in the latter half of 2024. Someone has to write one and get it out. And I think actually we're good for 2024 now. But I'm thinking about, this forces you to get the book written. It's almost done. I've just been tinkering with it. So I have to get a cover going and get Marion number 12 out, and we'll have to see. But with enough members, she has enough people when for the cookbook, the cry went up. We need more recipes. You cannot have a cookbook that's too slim. And so the cry went out and everyone went and dug in their records and I fished up recipes. The thing with cookbooks is that you cannot copy from Joy of Cooking. You really have to find something dimly original. And I found recipes that my mother had written down and I have no idea where she got them. I don't think it was Joy of Cooking, but at this moment, we might as well get them out into the world because if I don't, they will essentially perish with me. Nobody else knows how to do sauteed Chinese mushrooms, spicy,
The way your grandmother made them.
They were very good, but no one else will be able to do them unless I share this recipe. So fine, let's go for it.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
So talk to me a little bit for people who are in the audience who have never purchased from Bookview Cafe. What is the purchase process like? I take it does not take you to Barnes & Noble or Amazon. It's a purchase right there on the site.
Yes. The print books take you to outside sites. We don't, as yet, we're looking into print, which is a whole nother animal. But if you go to the website and click on the book, You will find a button for EPUB and also for the old Mobi, because a lot of people still have e-readers that want the old Kindle style. So our ebooks are in both, and you click it and you get a basket. It's pretty much like buying anything online now. You have a basket, you sign up, put your credit card in, and then you sideboard the book, and there it is.
You can also use PayPal, right?
Yes.
Yes. Anything that essentially you can purchase things online with, you can use with us.
Yeah.
Because lots of people are more comfortable using PayPal because then they don't have to get their credit card going in.
It's true. And also our site does ask for address and phone number, but that's because the software came that way. We couldn't edit it out, but people they just fill it with anything and nothing's going to happen. We don't even read that stuff. So I saw the other day where it said YYY, address XXX, city nowhere, country Mars, and phone number something ridiculous. So of course they can find a book.
Because it's all electronic. The card goes through and boom. Gradually getting to the point where everything is purely virtual. You don't, in theory, you need a physical address or a physical phone. It's quite cool.
Well, I have to tell you, I just tested the system because I design websites and I had to find out how it worked. And I bought one of Chris Dolly's books and it went smooth, and it's in my Kindle right now, ready to be read.
Hey, very good.
So
Very,
you guys
very
did it
good.
right.
Excellent.
And we'll tell him about it too. He lives in France, and the recent large storm in Europe nearly took him out. And so he'll be glad to hear this.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, I want to get in touch with him because I also write Woodhouseian pastiches. So I definitely want to read his stuff.
He's a lovely person, or at least he is online. I've never met him. I'd love to get him onto something like this.
Maybe he'll come to the Worldcon in Glasgow.
Yep. I think that your chances of that are good. He was in the Worldcon in London, like 10 years ago or whenever that was. It's easier that's the whole point of moving Worldcon, is so that not everyone has to travel across oceans to get to where a Worldcon. So the odds are good. Will you be in Glasgow, Karen Sherwood?
I'm trying.
I don't know if I can save up enough. I'd love to, but it's money.
Yeah. I am hoping to go, and we'll think of something. There probably won't be enough of us to have a party, but we'll think of something.
Are there many Bookview Cafe authors who live outside of the U.S. or in remote U.S. locations?
We have one in Australia.
Right.
Now have two in France. Let's see. Do we have anybody in England?
So this is really an international operation.
Yes.
It is, but sort of accidentally. I remember when Chris moved to France, and so suddenly he was in France. But nowadays, with the internet, you hardly notice. I am not in the United States now. As I sit here and speak, I'm sitting in Amsterdam. So it's we are living in the future. It's the greatest.
It's hard for Australian and New Zealand people though, because they're 14 hours from North America. That's pretty much the opposite.
Yes, and the stunts that we had to go to, the big debates about what time I should appear and try to sign on, because they have daylight savings in the Netherlands, but they don't have it when we have it. They had it in October, and then you had it this weekend, 10 hours ago or whatever it was. And this makes it very, very, very challenging. Elaborate arithmetic with clocks. And someday we'll be a little more together about this, but we're not that together now.
It takes some work to make it work.
Yeah. And when you consider how far we've come since, 20 years ago, this is great. It is, It is quite pleasant.
So I have a question. How does Bookview Cafe do quality control?
Well, that's one of those subjective things.
Well, it, if are you ever aware that somebody wants to publish a book and it hasn't been thoroughly proofread?
Well, okay, that's not a simple question to answer. One
I
thing,
know.
there are people who mix
Mhm.
UK spellings with American spellings, and they want it that way. So I think we did a lot of debate, we did a lot of hand wringing about it. What happens when the author steps something that the beta reader and the copy editor and the proofer says, no, 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 this is wrong, and the author wants it that way? Finally, it's up to the reader. If the reader doesn't like it, they don't buy that author. So
Okay.
that's how a consortium kind of works.
Do you have an acquisitions editor or an acquisitions committee?
Mm-mm.
Nope,
Mm-mm.
it really is.
Once you're in the Bookview Cafe consortium, then sort of we'll at least look at everything that you want to decide you want to push through Bookview Cafe. There's nothing particularly stopping you from sending your work to, Harper and Row or Bain Books, and they'll buy it, and great, go for it. But if you grind it through us, then at least 2 or 3 of of us look at everything that comes out through Bookview Cafe, and uh, there's it's in that sense it's freer than going through Bain Books or Core or whatever, where they really would crack down on you with those variant spellings.
I'm amazed at how much I'm seeing get published that is that has grammatical or typographical images, even from major publishers. The processes have really slacked off.
Every time I see a book that has somebody laying in bed, I want to grab hold of that copy and say,
I believe that even the major houses, the big New York publishers have cut down a lot on the proofing process and a lot of that back end stuff. There's a lot of hope that automating it, using, spell checks will help you. And that only carries you so far, as God knows we all know. But you never, on the other hand, you never get to kill every single one of those typos. No faster way to find that typo than to hit the publish button.
That's right. And by the way, we do proof books that are coming out again, reissued. And presumably these were copy edited and proofed by traditional publishers. And we find all kinds of errors. So the more
It's endless.
the better. And then if the author cooperates, it's a cleaner book.
I am just staggered by how much in the way of services the Bookview Cafe is providing to members. I mean, it is expensive to get a copy editor. It is expensive to do proofreading. My partner is a proofreader. And so, how does money work? I mean, does all the money when you sell, does some of it flow to the cooperative and some of it flows to the author?
90% goes to the author, 10% goes to the cooperative because we've got to pay for the website.
Right.
So you understand that when you beta read and you put a lot of hours into it or copy edit or whatever, it is volunteer labor. Same with the people.
It is like the Communist Party, from each according to her ability and to each according to her need. So the hope is that it eventually balances out over time. And I think mostly it does. The people who work really hard eventually say, I have to take a year off. I have to write this book, and they bail out and someone else steps up. Or there are people who just sort of grind along doing good things for years and years and years, but it's at a low enough level that it doesn't drain you dry.
Yeah.
So don't shoot me for asking this question, but what are some ideas that maybe Bookview Cafe has thought about doing, but then has decided not to? Because every organization decides, we want to try this, we want to try a magazine, we want to try a newsletter, we want to do this, that, and the other. Are there any things you've tried and decided this isn't us?
I don't think so, because there's so much work that goes into uh, all these various media, and some projects sell better than others. And of course, we're
I can
always
think of one.
Go ahead, Brenda.
I can think of one. So at one point, do you remember Sherwood that we discussed going there to be essentially estate members? You know, your dad was a famous science fiction author, and he has passed away. You're sitting on his back list, but none of the major publishers are willing to pick up this ball. So you could, in theory, come to Bookview Cafe, and we could push out all of the old books by, whoever this golden age writer was, and split the profits with the estate. And I guess I don't remember, but essentially that's quite a lot of work. And the estate isn't contributing to the labor. And that's where it really falls apart, because if you're counting on a cooperative model, everybody has to do some stuff. Otherwise, if you sit back and wait for someone else to do the stuff, nothing gets done.
So we have got a question coming from Facebook, and the question is: have any Bookview Cafe publications ended up on a banned list anywhere? And books aren't really banned, of course; they're just removed from particular shelves. But have any Bookview Cafe publications run afoul of restrictionist policies?
I don't know. I don't look at banned books lists. I mean, probably a lot of us would end up on some kind of a banned list or another, depending on like the people who write queer positive books and write about magic would end up where certain kinds of very strict fundamentalists might be alarmed about that content. But there's never been, that I'm aware of, any giant furor over a Bookview Cafe book.
I remember sending my first novel to Jerry Falwell in hopes of being denounced from the pulpit, but he wouldn't do it. Darn it.
Well, I think a lot of people actually done it. Probably got warehouses full of books sent in hopes that.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. I'm not the first person with this brilliant idea.
I think, who was it? Was it one of the encyclopedists before the French Revolution said the best way to sell your book is to get on the forbidden book list.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Or I don't know if anyone here is a fan of Stephen Sondheim, but in his musical Assassins, which is about all the people who tried to assassinate presidents of the United States, and one of the assassins says, "It was to promote the sales of my book."
Whoa. This is part of why there have been laws passed in many jurisdictions that prevent someone who is a convicted felon from benefiting from writing about their crimes.
Yes.
I can see that, because there's, God only knows enough sleazeballs who really would, if they want to write a book, they can do that, but then the profits should go to their murder victims or something.
I agree.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. In terms of banning books, ebooks have not been as much of a target of banning as print books, because no one can pick them up and wave them around and complain about the dragons and fairies on the cover and stuff like that.
About the children. Oh, the children should not read in children's libraries, children's sections of libraries.
Yeah.
So,
well, those kids are smart enough to go and buy books online and not tell mom. So with a little bit of luck, when they're old enough, they can just go through and read it, and they're okay.
So I have to ask Brenda and Sherwood, are you guys aware of any other collectives similar to Bookview?
we did look up, because when we were claiming that we're the oldest, we thought, well, maybe we better find out if we are the oldest. And it turned out that there's a group, and it's mostly women, I believe, in the Northeast who have been going longer than we have.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And there's also at least a couple music cooperatives who work this same way, only they're writing songs and cutting records, or, or selling on Spotify or whatever. So it's actually a fairly reasonably common model. There's also a bunch of people who did it in the past, in the 19th century, and then essentially everybody's dead now, so they're not doing it, but they were going perfectly good for a while.
I come across groups that are somewhat collaborative, and I come across them primarily because they will open up a call for short stories for an anthology.
Right.
And then when you go and you look, you see it's the same group of people. And a lot of them seem to be in the South. And a lot of them are organized either around romance, adjacent fantasy, or a horror. And I don't know why those genres, but I have, and I've been involved with a couple of them as a contributor, and they have a really efficient publishing process because they're so experienced.
I think the one that I had before is mysteries, actually.
So we have a question coming in from a woman asking, do women work together better than men, generally speaking?
That could be a hot button question, but I would actually say generally, yes. I think generally women historically have grow up learning how to work in teams to accomplish all that needs to be done. I know there's a lot of studies going on in paleontology and archaeology and stuff, countering what we were raised with in my day, the hunter-gatherer thing, where the men go out and hunt and the women stay and plant and work together cooperatively, raising the children as well as the food. And that's now regarded as simplistic. But at least in my life experience, I found that in school and in work, women would generally look for other women to accomplish a huge task, knowing that 6 hands is better than 2. That's not to say men don't or can't cooperate, because that's not true.
I have been reading a lot of Terry Pratchett's books recently, and I find it really interesting that you look at the men and they're in hierarchical organizations, the Watch, the academicians, and you look at the women and it's a group of 3 women cooperating, each with her own strengths as the witches.
But hierarchy among women, all of us have heard about queen bees, and they're little we published. When I was watching my daughter grow up, and we tried to do gender neutral raising and all that sort of stuff, but in first grade she came home crying one day because the queen bee of the class went around to all the boys and said, put down who you like in order, number 1, number 2, and number 3. So I was pissed, and I went to the teacher. Do you know this is going on? And so she was an old veteran. She said, it's been going on for all the years I've been teaching. They do it on the schoolyard. They don't do it in the classroom. And I thought back to my own childhood. I thought, yeah, she's right. There was that hierarchy jumping. So,
yeah.
I think that's why we're careful about who we let into the cooperative, because if there's anyone who's wants to be a queen bee or is expected to be waited on or is a dick waver, it's not going to work out. And we try to nip that in the bud rather than I don't think we've ever expelled anybody, but it is, it just makes life a lot easier if everyone will just buckle down and do stuff.
Yeah, I think potential queen bees or the like just quit in a huff if everybody doesn't get in line and follow them. And then the fact takes care of itself.
Well, we are winding down. We are into the last 5 minutes of this show. And I know Bob likes to pop on at the end and tell people about what brilliant things B Cubed Press is doing. There he is.
Speak of the devil. Speak of the devil.
But I want to thank Sherwood and Brenda for coming on and telling us. And I'm hoping this inspires some of our listeners to do collaborative, cooperative arts things. Sherwood, do you have any final words for us about your experience with Bookview?
I think it's wonderful. I love being part of the cooperative. I just have good things to say about it. And I also want to thank you for being an awesome host.
Yes.
Well, there was one question I had. I
Mhm.
seem to recall that at one point Audible came in and bought your backlog.
Mhm.
They bought a
Yep.
number too. It
Uh,
was gone.
what was the impact of that on your overall presence in the recorded book um,
I don't think the
world?
impact.
Did it open it up for you guys quite a bit, or
No,
was it a blip?
I didn't notice any particular change, but it's always nice when someone gives you a lump of money. They, at that moment, Audible was just beginning and they were going through and scooping up works in large quantities, essentially at the wholesale level. And so if they came to us and said, we'll buy everything, how about it? Sure.
and then royalties would happen after 8 years, and a lot of us found that very few of our books were earning royalties. Some did, but
Mhm.
production, they were also learning at that end, and the quality of production for a lot of our books was pretty terrible. So many of us have asked for our rights back, and we are now looking for ways to get Audible books, but do a better job. It's expensive.
I would really love to do that. That is another project that we could do. If we could get our books onto in an audio format better. I would love
Well,
to do that. But if you
talk
have a
to me
lot of
some,
books, that's a lot of money.
talk to me sometime about that. I've had 3 experiences with Audible and various productions, and
Mhm.
some of them have been hideous. Some of them I've seen very good quality, but the money is, you don't get that kind of quality without spending a little bit of money. And so you got to be very careful what you do it. I have,
Yep.
but that said, I just wanted to ask that question. And I noticed that I had to go get something to compensate for my lack of a vanilla martini.
Mhm.
Hey, here you go, Brenda. Uh,
It's after 5 o'clock here, you know.
hey, if I'm talking to somebody where it's after 5 o'clock,
It's
you
after
know,
5 o'clock.
it's after 5 o'clock. And besides that, I love a good gin in the morning. The
This one is excellent, I will say.
airplane,
Mhm.
it's a very fine gin.
Good.
But anyway, Sherwood,
Yeah.
I am looking forward to, now that I have actually perused your books, I'm looking forward to going and picking one for a new read.
Mhm.
And thank you very much for showing up and helping us through this. And as always, it's good to hear from Karen. And, um, you know, I just got to say to Brenda, be like Karen, write stories for us.
I'm working on it. It is I've uh 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 I've slowed down this year because of various health reasons and stuff, but I'm going to get better and get going on this. We
And the
will
same
see.
goes for you,
Brenda's
Sherwood.
definition of slowing down is only about a book every other month.
Yeah, I saw
Well,
that.
you know, we'll
Aviation.
see.
Thank you, Susan. It's not airplane, it's aviation. And
Mhm.
I should have known that Susan would be sitting there drinking her coffee this morning and recognize that I had made that mistake. But it's some really good stuff. And the bottle is cool. So,
Yeah.
that said, any last words? Sherwood,
No,
what's
it's so great to see you all.
good
Yes.
to see you?
Thank you for hosting.
Okay. Well, then, Karen, can you hang around for a minute after we go?
I can.
Thank you.
Hi, Irene.
She's editing a book for me, and I need to find out how it's